Good morning from Salt Lake City, South Salt Lake City, the neighborhood known as Sugar House. Adam Taxin here, and happy Purim for my fellow Jews and even all you non-Jews who appreciate Jewish holidays. Just very quickly here, I am dressed kind of ridiculously on purpose. That is a Purim thing, which I'll get to in a minute. I want to just start off, tell you that's an obelisk in the background that commemorates the history of this particular neighborhood, Sugar House, which is in South Salt Lake City. This is where there was a sugar beet plant in the late 1800s when the Mormons really were the ones who created this part of, who created Salt Lake City, and really so much of this part of the country, well beyond Utah. I mean, Idaho, other states, the Mormons really were key to developing it. I learned a lot yesterday at Shabbos at Chabad of Utah, just talking to people here. I'll get to one particular conversation in a second, but just two interesting, quirky things about Salt Lake City, which I was not aware of. And by the way, let me just explain, the Sugar House name is not, interestingly, it's a casino not far from where I used to live in Philadelphia, but that was just probably marketing. There really was a sugar beet factory in this part of town in a former blacksmith's shop. I think Mayor Smoot, that's a name you hear a lot. I think there's a town called Smoot in Utah here, set it up, and they process sugar beets, which is a little bit ironic because the name Deseret, am I pronouncing it correctly, is how the Book of Mormon refers to honeybees. So, you know, you think honey, sugar, competing products, but so be it. Honeybees are a big deal in the history of Utah. I'll let you Google that on your own. Just two interesting things I picked up about Salt Lake City. One, it's pretty liberal here. I mean, I think the more appropriate analogy from what I've talking to people, I really wasn't too many places other than this neighborhood and then at a Purim party last night, is that it has a lot in common with a place like Boulder. Kind of liberal. It's where people who are not Mormon or even anti-Mormon, which is a thing, you don't have really half-hearted Mormons here, apparently. Like, you have a lot of half-hearted Jews who go through the motions. You either are in or you're not in the club, supposedly. Again, this is just on secondhand information. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And so even, I think there's a Democrat mayor. Is she lesbian, or is that just Houston I'm thinking of? But there's a Democrat mayor in Salt Lake City. The area is probably, I think, less than or somewhere around 50% Mormon. Basically, the Mormons' center of gravity, even though the temple is here, Temple Square, the big Mormon temple, the center of gravity really is in Provo now, south of here. I may stop by there later, make a little walk around Brigham Young, but that's really the center of gravity these days. That's about 50 minutes south of here, as well as other places. Salt Lake is the city that people sort of left to go other places, which happens a lot of places. Not in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, by the way. That's still where the Lubavitchers are, and the Rebbe way back when, but I don't want to digress in that. He encouraged the people to live there. Another interesting thing is you look at the mountains around here and you say, wow, that must be such a picturesque place to live. But apparently, this is one of the worst places in America for smog. I'm not really experiencing it right now because the mountains surround it, and that creates an effect like with Los Angeles and Mexico City for sure. It's not so much that there's industry here, it's just that the mountains, all the car exhausts get stuck here for a while, apparently. Again, I'm not noticing this personally, just from talking to people. So that's something interesting I picked up. I always wondered with LA, but why doesn't the smog just go out to the water, right? There are no mountains surrounding the water, right? Or I guess Malibu, it's a lot of cliffs up there. I don't know. I'll get an answer to that sometime. I will be in LA in the next few days. Ron Corey, I haven't checked the mileage, so I don't know how many miles they've put on the car the last few days, but it's been a lot of driving since I left New Orleans 2 weeks ago today, because the pollen, ironically, given I talk about smog and the air quality, was really bothering me, so I came out to the Northwest. Just want to tell you a little bit about Purim. It's the holiday. You know, a lot of Jews, especially half-assed ones, will say, oh, all the holidays are the same. I know one guy in college who thought he was so clever who did that. Went on to win a lot of Emmys for writing. It is good, but it was just like, you know, justify your, oh, they tried to kill us, they didn't kill us, let's eat, I'm so clever. But really, Purim is the one that does celebrate that, and it was not based on, it was really genocide, almost a precursor, it would have been, to Nazi Germany. They didn't care if you observed Judaism or not. They cared that you were Jewish, and time to go. Haman made that plot. It didn't happen, and this is the one, and the eating is part of it, but it's only part. It's really more about drinking than eating, and fortunately I'm not hungover. I think I kept myself to 2 at the party last night. Tonight in Las Vegas will be a different story with drinking. I don't think I'm going to be driving after that one. Actually, I didn't. I Ubered last night, which apparently is a good idea here in Salt Lake City because parking is terrible in the downtown, so it's very good for Uber drivers in this particular area. Not like a place like LA where you get a lot of parking. Now, this is not really a costume. I just grabbed a few things out of the car that would make the best quasi costume I could. Some Greek beads I picked up off the store that didn't seem too fouled by whatever on the street in Bourbon Street. I probably should have washed them off, but whatever. And sunglasses, or just sunglasses. You can't really see the sunrise. That's why I'm looking west right now. East there are mountains and it's kind of cloudy. There might be a sunrise, but the mountain's blocking it right now. And the hat is just my spring training hat. I still haven't been to a spring training game. Hopefully that'll change in Arizona later this week, and I may get to one in Florida in 2 weeks to see the Phillies. I don't think it'll be too much competition for A's Diamondbacks split squad tickets on Friday in Arizona. But okay, why do we dress up in Purim? This is hurting my hand. Let me switch hands here. Okay, this is according to Chabad. And there's much more to the holiday, but I'm just going to talk about this one because people know that they dress up. People know that dressing up occurs on Purim, but they don't know why. And I couldn't even give a clean answer, so I'm going to read this really quickly. From Chabad.org, after this bus passes, or trash truck. There are several reasons given for the age-old custom to dress up in costumes on Purim. Here are some of them. 1. In contrast to the overt miracles of the holidays of Passover, Hanukkah, and other Jewish holidays, the miracle of the holiday of Purim was disguised in natural events. Here is a sampling of the story. A lot of you know this, I'm sorry. But the king, Ahasuerus, wanted his wife to come to a party. She did not want to, and she was killed. Then an evil man wanted the Jews dead and plotted to accomplish this with the approval of the king. The king remarried, and his new queen happened to be Jewish, and arranged for the decree to be countered. I also, by the way, I'm curious, maybe I can get an answer. How old was Queen Esther? My guess is she was probably about 14, 15. That's the way things occurred back then. I don't even know, but maybe I can get an answer on that. Arranged for the decree to be countered only after the fact. When one looks at the entire story, does one realize the great miracle that transpired. God's name doesn't really occur in the whole Megillah, which is the reading that takes place on Purim. And sort of like how the Torah reading yesterday, Moses' name never appears. It's probably not coincidental. But the custom of wearing costumes on Purim is an allusion to the nature of the Purim miracle, where the details of the story are really miracles hidden within natural events. 2. The Talmud writes that just as the Jews at the time pretended to be serving other gods, God pretended that he was going to destroy the Jewish nation, and in the end he did not. Rabbi Tzvi Elimelech Shapiro, known as the Bnei Yisachar, writes that this is the reason we pretend to be someone else on Purim, since both the Jews and God's actions were masked by other intentions. 3. We dress differently on Purim to minimize the embarrassment of the poor who go around collecting charity on this day, a day when we give charity to everyone who outstretches their hands. And 4, to commemorate the dressing up of Mordecai in King Ahasuerus' royal garments in the story of Purim. Now, I'm not going to get into these things. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. There are 4 things Jewish people should do today. You can look up 4 mitzvahs on Purim. I don't really want to get into that too much either. Okay, that's enough about that. That's why I'm dressed kind of weird. More on that later from Las Vegas, or maybe scenes from the party I'll be at if I make it there. Just a couple things I wanted to go over. I think I pretty much went over everything. Oh, I did have an interesting conversation about Jews and Purim. Now here, I mentioned before, there are a lot of people who really consider themselves anti-Mormon. And I didn't bring this conversation up. I just happened to hear about it yesterday when people were talking, or we were walking somewhere, some of the people in the community here. This is the Jewish center of gravity in the Salt Lake City area. And there is community, so it's not that quirky. It's not as unusual as it may seem. It's not like, a Jewish community in Mecca or something. But here's the point someone was making. It was a psychiatrist in the area. I won't use his name, but, he wanted me to cite him, and he definitely wants to look at this. A lot of Jews won't celebrate Purim. Why is that? This holiday is pretty much all good, all fun. It's not too much time in synagogue. It's nothing like you know, you have to not eat bread for a while. But a lot of Jewish people won't celebrate this. Yet they will. I mean, this was something that commemorates something that would have happened to all Jews, in the sense that, you know, all Jews would have been killed, whether you observe Judaism or not. This was after the destruction of the first temple, and a lot of people had assimilated at that point, but they would have been goners, sort of like Nazi Germany, very assimilated too, or National Socialist Germany, as I make a point to say. But in contrast to Hanukkah, which is more celebrated and also is a rabbinical holiday, not in the Torah. It was decided later on because the events occurred much later on. People will celebrate Hanukkah, even though that really is a holiday, if you know the details of it, that should be celebrated only by Jews who observe Judaism to a significant extent, because it was largely a civil war against Torah-oriented Jews versus assimilated Jews, and the Greek and the Syrian Greeks, who weren't really the Greeks, but were acting under the Greeks. It was occurring in the Middle East. The Greeks didn't really live there. But Jews celebrate Hanukkah. Why? Because it's our Christmas. That's, I think, why it occurs. But a lot of Jews won't observe Purim today, which is pure fun. It's the only day of the year where you're really supposed to get drunk. And yet they'll celebrate Rosh Hashanah, which is no fun. Yom Kippur, which is not fun, and Passover is pretty good with the Seders, but it's also largely obligation, what you can't eat. So really what we came up with, and we were brainstorming on this, and really more his ideas than mine, is that for so many American Jews, and yeah, I'm mocking it a little bit here, it's not that they want to do anything that's really enjoyable that's Jewish. With Hanukkah, it's well, we don't have Christmas, but at least we have this. It's sort of a weak version of Christmas. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are really just about sitting in synagogue. Yeah, you get a couple good meals with Rosh Hashanah, but really nothing that fun, not worth the sacrifice of going into synagogue. And with Passover, yeah, you can only eat certain things. And, you know, there's a long Seder. Frankly, Seders are a little long for my taste. Sorry, the garbage truck is here again. But you don't want to do a holiday like Purim, pure fun. You can even drive on it, whatever. And you don't want to do a holiday like Sukkot or Simchas Torah, which really are pure fun, often sitting out in very nice weather in a sukkah. Because I think, and certainly the psychiatrist who was at synagogue yesterday and we were talking afterward, are the belief that it's not something to be enjoyed, it's not something to feel a part of, it's something to do the bare minimum commitment, check it off on a box, and really to do it half-assedly. What's the minimum I can do that I can still meet the qualifications as Jewish? And don't get me started on the whole bar mitzvah thing. Like, I never understood this. With observant Jews, it's a really not that big a deal. You just say something in the Torah, you sponsor Kiddush. I mean, yes, some make elaborate parties, but for non-observant Jews, certainly the way I grew up, oh, it's such a big deal. I had to learn how to read the Haftarah and the Torah and be ready for it because it was so important. I mean, it's just a weird skill to have that's not particularly practical, not really even emphasized by observant Jews. And that's, you know, it's just bizarre. It's an excuse to have a party. That's supposed to be fun, but it's really to show off how much money the parents have, how fancy an event they can have. I notice in a lot of cases. Mine was certainly no exception, but love you anyway, Mom and Dad. But you know, so that's it. That's Purim. That's an interesting quirk. If you're Jewish, I would highly suggest observing it, getting drunk. You can take Uber, just having some fun with it. Judaism's not meant to be an obligation. I mean, if you're going to do some holidays, might as well do the fun ones. Yom Kippur is no fun. That's just my 2 cents. The 4 things you really should do is distribute at least 2 gifts to the poor, which often can be done through a charity box. 2, hear the Megillah reading twice. 1 has to be last night, so that's not going to happen for you now. 1 is today. You can look at Chabad.org or a lot of, you know, whatever your local synagogue is, and hear the Megillah reading. 3, I'm sorry if this is boring you, but that is my topic for today. I know it's kind of esoteric for most of you. 3 is 2 different gifts to people of 2 different types of food. And the different types of food are based on what blessing goes on them. Again, Google it if you want. What's the 4th thing? Oh, to have a festive meal. All fun. You can do that just so long as you start it before sunset tonight. So that's it. Finally, I haven't done much political stuff. My purpose here is not to be your source for the news. I'm not trying to act like I'm descending from the heavens to enlighten you with my wisdom. Go to Gateway Pundit. He covers the stories pretty comprehensively and chronologically. Drudge Report, of course, is good, although not chronological. Great analysis. Look, you know where to go. Marketticker.org. Ann Barnhart writes great stuff, provocative, at barnhart.biz. But I want to give a shout out to one person who, I'm not going to read this because it's meant to be read as a whole. It just wouldn't work on video. But Giovanni Barricelli has a new post. I like his stuff. It's definitely provocative. called I Had a Dream. It's about what perhaps should be going on in the government right now, and with all the stuff, and it doesn't use the word deep state, just like the Purim Megillah does not use the word God, but you can tell it's definitely oriented toward the deep state. That's Giovanni Barricelli, and it can be found at thepunch.blogspot.com. If you've written stuff for me to go over, look, I know a lot of people write better stuff and come up with better ideas than I do, and I'm willing to put it on video and get you guys some more publicity, because my view is a lot of the news and a lot of the analysis that comes out just isn't that great. There are a lot of really brilliant people here writing some stuff that just not that many people are seeing, not that many people are watching me quite yet, but I hope to grow this. And, you know, I'm committed to giving you something visual, which is not a picture in front of a green screen, but me actually there, even though it's often incongruous. Like what I'm talking about now really has very little to do with the history of sugar beet processing among the Mormons. But, hey, thanks for watching. I will try to get you a midday report in a few hours. I will be driving between Salt Lake and Las Vegas, so even though I have a hotspot, signals are very weak, which is the irony, because it'll be very beautiful. And yeah, I'll do my best to get you something. It might not be right at midday, you know, the point between sunset and sunrise, but if I get a signal somewhere in central or southern Utah, I'll do some sort of midday so-called report. Thanks for watching.